In the early 1950s, Allard was one of the few British carmakers bold enough to challenge the status quo. Known for their raw, V8-powered sports cars, Allard had earned a reputation for building machines that felt more like street-legal race cars than daily drivers. These were aggressive, stripped-down beasts, cars that didn't just move, they attacked the road. But then came something that made absolutely no sense. A car so out of step with Allard's identity that people genuinely questioned if it was a joke. They called it the P2 Safari. On paper, it sounded like a bold experiment, combined the sleek front end of a performance car with the practical rear of a station wagon. In reality, it looked like two completely different cars had crashed into each other, and someone decided to build the wreck. No one knew why Allard, the same company that terrified Jaguars on the track, would willingly design something this strange. It wasn't innovative. It wasn't beautiful. It was just confusing. And this confusion would only deepen the more you looked at it. At first glance, the Allard P2 Safari looks like someone played a cruel prank on the automotive world. The front half is unmistakably Allard, low-slung, aggressive, and muscular, as if it's ready to tear down a racetrack. But then your eyes move toward the back, and everything falls apart. Instead of a sleek coupe silhouette, you're met with a tall, blocky rear end covered in wood paneling like a 1940s family wagon. It's as if the designers couldn't decide between building a race car or a picnic mobile, so they chose both. The transition is so abrupt it almost feels accidental, like two cars got welded together at a scrapyard. Even in an era known for bold experiments, this was too much. The proportions were awkward, the stance was confused, and the overall vibe screamed identity crisis. There was no aerodynamic logic, no visual harmony, just a Frankenstein creation that left onlookers baffled, and maybe a little disturbed. Whatever statement Allard was trying to make, the only message that came through loud and clear was, what were they thinking? Underneath all that visual chaos, the P2 Safari did have one redeeming quality: power. Like most Allards of the era, it was fitted with a Ford V8 engine, a brute force heartbeat that gave their lightweight sports cars real menace on the road. And in the Safari, that same engine still roared. It had torque, it had speed, it had the potential to outrun just about anything that dared challenge it. But here's the catch: nobody wanted to race a car that looked like a luxury hearse on mismatched tires. The engine was trying to scream performance, while the body whispered soccer practice. It was a tragic mismatch, the kind you feel sorry for. Like a trained fighter stuck in a clown costume. No matter how strong the powertrain was, the absurd styling buried any respect it could have earned. It wasn't just overlooked, it was laughed at, which is a shame, because beneath the bizarre exterior lived a machine that, in any other shell, might have been a legend. That's the question that still haunts car historians to this day. Why? Why would a company like Allard, famous for building cars that thrilled drivers and scared competitors, go so wildly off-brand? The truth is, no one really knows. There was no clear market for a sports wagon hybrid. It wasn't built for racing, it wasn't designed for families, and it definitely wasn't created for mass appeal. Some believe it was meant to target a niche group of wealthy adventurers, people who wanted performance and space in one package. Others think it was just an experimental pet project that accidentally made it to production. Whatever the case, Allard didn't push it hard. There was no flashy marketing campaign, no major auto show debut. It quietly slipped into existence, almost as if the company hoped no one would notice. Only 10 to 13 units were ever built, numbers so low, it's hard to believe this was ever a serious production effort. It feels more like a strange automotive dare, one that even Allard seemed reluctant to stand behind. When the Allard P2 Safari finally hit the streets, if you can even call it a launch, the reaction was swift and brutal. People didn't just dislike it, they didn't understand it. Car buyers were confused, collectors were uninterested, and critics didn't even know where to begin. It was too strange to be stylish, too clunky to be sporty, and too rare to be relevant. The public treated it like an automotive accident you couldn't look away from. As a result, most of the Safaris disappeared almost immediately. Some were scrapped, others were quietly tucked away in barns or garages, never to be seen again. And rumor has it, a few were even cannibalized for parts, because at least the engine was worth saving. Today, only about 5 are known to exist. 5 survivors of a design so confusing, it was practically erased from history. Not by accident, but almost intentionally, like the industry wanted to forget it ever happened. In the world of classic cars, failure doesn't always mean forgotten. The Allard P2 Safari may have been a visual disaster, but its bizarre charm has earned it a strange kind of cult status. To collectors today, it's not a a masterpiece, it's a mystery, a rolling riddle from a company that usually built rockets on wheels. And that's what makes it valuable now. Not for its performance, not for its design, but because it's one of the rarest examples of what happens when a legendary automaker takes a massive creative risk and lands flat on its face. It's a cautionary tale preserved in steel and wood paneling. At auctions, the few surviving Safaris don't fetch millions, but they do spark conversations. People stare, people laugh, people remember it. And in a strange way, that's exactly what gives the P2 Safari its twisted legacy. It's the car nobody asked for, nobody bought, and yet somehow, nobody forgets. The Allard P2 Safari wasn't just a strange car, it was a misstep so bold, it accidentally became unforgettable. In an era where brands played it safe, Allard took a risk that made absolutely no sense, and maybe that's why we still talk about it today. It didn't shape the future, it didn't change the game, but it did remind us that even the best can stumble, and sometimes those stumbles become the most fascinating stories of all. In a world full of polished legends, the P2 Safari stands out because it dares to be awkward, uncomfortable, and completely out of place. And sometimes, that's exactly what makes history.